You're coming with me. Those 4 words cut through the smoke and chaos like a steel cable snapping tight. I didn't know the man in the blue work uniform, didn't know his name, or why he was in the middle of a burning high-rise with me. But I knew his voice was the only steady thing in that stairwell. My heels were slipping. My ribs ached from the cough I couldn't stop, and the air tasted like burnt metal. He wedged the door open with a rubber block, grabbed my arm before I could argue, and said it again, softer but firmer. You're coming with me. We took the service corridor, his choice, not mine. I tried to tell him I ran this building. He told me he cleaned it, which meant tonight he was in charge of this part. Somewhere between the flicker of the emergency lights and the rain from the sprinklers soaking through my suit, I stopped fighting him. There was something about the way he moved, like he'd done this before, like he'd made promises in worse situations and kept every one of them. Halfway down the stairs, his phone buzzed. A little girl's sleepy voice floated out of the speaker. "Daddy, you promised story time." He chuckled, kept his tone light. "I know, Bean. The building's just grumpy tonight." She giggled. "Don't forget your inhaler in your left pocket. You always forget." He promised he wouldn't. That tiny moment of father and daughter in the middle of my nightmare cracked something in me. I hadn't been anyone's first call in years. By the time we reached the alley, rain was troughing sideways, paparazzi lenses flashing like weapons. I was ready to pull away, ready to stand my ground against the circus, but his hand stayed on my back. "Right now," he said, "I do have to touch you." It wasn't a threat. It was an anchor. And when he told me I wasn't going home, that I'd be coming with him, I realized I didn't actually have a safer option. His place was a basement apartment that smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, and cedar walls lined with the little girl's artwork, purple dragons, rockets, a stick figure with a mop in one hand and a sword in the other. Mrs. Torres, his neighbor, put tea in my hands before I could protest. I'd spent my career in boardrooms where everything was controlled and polished. Here nothing matched and everything felt deliberate. He asked why I was in the fire. I told him it wasn't random. I smelled accelerant. I knew exactly who wanted me out: Victor Kane, hours for a man I'd publicly voted against 2 years ago. What I didn't tell him right then was that I'd once covered for Victor to protect a merger, burying a whistleblower in the process. Miles, that's his name, just listened, filed it away. I could tell he was a man who didn't waste questions until he'd earned the answers. The next morning, his friend Hattie, a journalist, showed up with news the fire alarm system had been tampered with, delayed 3 minutes, just enough time to make sure no one could save the place. Whoever did it knew the building's systems inside out, which meant it was someone inside. We all knew whose name hung in the air. To prove it, we needed the backup security logs stored in a server vault on the 7th floor. Executive clearance only. Miles just shrugged. I clean around that vault. I know when the guard's on lunch. That's how 2 days later, we slipped through a back hallway past an empty desk and pulled a file named Shadow Ledger off a hidden drive. It was all there: Victor's shell accounts, the fire system contract under his control. I walked into the shareholder meeting, ready to drop it on the table. Our systems were sabotaged. I told the room, not by outsiders, but by someone who knows this company. I named Victor. His smile didn't even twitch. He just held up a tablet showing a still frame of me in the rain leaning into Miles's arm, making it look like I was compromised, unprofessional. Gasps swept the room. And then from the back, a voice. "We believe her." A man in a worn jacket, one of the employees Victor had laid off, stepped forward. Others joined him. It was the first time in weeks I didn't feel like I was standing alone. Victor wasn't going quietly. Hattie called that night, said unmarked sedans were near Miles's block, maybe looking to use his daughter as leverage. Miles grabbed Lily and took her to an abandoned wood shop he used to work in. Victor found us there. He didn't come in swinging. He came in talking about his own kid, about what it means to protect your family. But I'd seen the bodies he'd left in his version of protection. Miles told him, "Flat out, I know what it's like to fight the system without turning into it. That's the difference between us." Sirens not chased Victor off into the rain. I pulled up minutes later, hair plastered to my face, yelling at Miles to get in the car. We didn't stop driving until the city lights were a smear in the rear view. The next morning, Hattie's article went live, every detail of Victor's fraud and sabotage laid bare. By afternoon, SWAT had him cornered at the ferry terminal. He spotted us in the crowd and shouted something I still think about. "You only win when you keep what matters most. Protect her, janitor." I still don't know if it was a threat or advice. The board ousted him within hours. They offered me my CEO chair back. I didn't take it. I wasn't interested in rebuilding an empire that could be burned down by one man's ego. I wanted something that wouldn't need an empire to stand. Meanwhile, Miles had his own battle, a custody hearing against his late wife's sister. I sat in that courtroom and listened to him tell the judge, Lily didn't need the biggest house, she needed someone who'd show up every time. When the opposing lawyer asked who cared for her during his night shifts, I stood and said, "I do." The judge ordered a home visit. CPS showed up that night, already biased, already checking boxes that had nothing to do with what they saw. When they left, Miles just said, "We make sure the truth's louder than the orders." We did. He won custody. When Lily ran into his arms asking if she'd be with him forever, he told her forever and a day. I had to look away for a second. Months later, we stood outside an old post office with the windows scrubbed clean and the sign repainted Kane Street Community Hub. It wasn't just his project, it was the city's. Inside, kids were setting up an after-school program. Neighbors were organizing food drives. Mrs. Torres was bossing everyone around in her apron. Miles looked at me and said, "It's not mine." I just gave them a door they could walk through. At the ribbon cutting, he told the crowd, "Sometimes the walls we build aren't meant to keep people out, but to give them something to gather inside of." I could feel the truth of it in my chest. That winter snow fell soft and slow outside the hub's glowing windows. Lily announced we'd be doing Christmas there every year. Some promises, she said, with all the seriousness a kid can muster, you keep no matter what. Miles squeezed her shoulder. "I think we can manage that." And when Mrs. Torres teased that it had taken us long enough, I just laughed because she was right. Later, walking out into the snowy street, I slipped my arm through his. "Let's go home," I told him. And for once, home didn't mean a penthouse or a title. It meant 3 people who'd chosen each other even when they didn't have to. Now I'm curious. If you were in my shoes that night, would you have trusted the stranger in the stairwell? Or would you have taken your chances alone? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know if you believe survival is about the people you pick or the people who pick you.